Well, for more on the foreclosure crisis in the nation and the banks that are profiting from them, Michael Preisner joins us now. Welcome, Michael. So the foreclosure crisis so dire today that people, as you just saw, are willing to risk getting arrested in protest. What does this say about the state of the country today?
Well, it says that conditions for poor and working people in the United States are very bad, and they're getting much worse. I know that all of these militant actions taking place across the country, the retaking of foreclosed homes, the taking of vacant buildings to provide housing for people, these people aren't going out to the streets and doing this because they want to get arrested or because they want to get attacked by the cops, but because they're left with no other choice, because they're compelled to fight, because they have no other choice but to fight, because this government, after years of an economic crisis, has taken no real meaningful action to try to improve the lives of the people that are affected by a crisis that they didn't create and had no role in creating. And I think when you see even war veterans, like who is featured in this story, people who the politicians are saying over and over again are the people they care most about and want to take care of the most, when even it's veterans who are experiencing a massively high rate of foreclosure and eviction and a disproportionately high rate of homelessness, it really exposes that the U.S. government, for the people who are struggling to stay in their homes, doesn't really care too much about them.
Now, the Marine that we just saw is just one of many Americans in that predicament today. These people turn to Freddie Mac, a company who says that their mission is to help people achieve their dream of owning a home. How are these people being manipulated into believing this?
Well, these banks come up with these very predatory schemes. I mean, they prey on people who they know they can get into a deal, and they don't care whether or not they can make the payments. And in fact, today there was a major agreement reached between the Attorney General of the state of California and with 5 of the biggest banks, where these banks were found guilty of committing fraud, of reaching out to people who needed homes, who wanted to refinance, and tricking them, committing fraudulent acts, and causing millions of people to be kicked out of their homes. And the response of the state government to this was a settlement where the state would get, a figure of about $18 billion, which factors out to about $1,000 or $2,000 per homeowner who is taken advantage of by the banks and then who is kicked out of their home. That's the compensation that they're told that they're entitled to. And so this crisis is happening because of fraud committed by the banks, because of predatory lending committed by the banks, and because of a financial crisis that was created by the biggest banks and the biggest corporations leading the economy down a road that didn't matter to them if it collapsed. It only mattered if they increased their profits for that quarter.
As you just said, it is the big banks that are profiting from this, profiting from the hardships of others. I know that you are an advocate of the Occupy Wall Street movement. Does this serve as another example of the injustices that the movement is fighting against?
Oh, absolutely. The main things that brought people into the street when the Occupy Wall Street movement started in September, it was the high rate of foreclosures and the high rate of student debt, of young people who did what they were told, lived the American dream, went to college, came out with a degree, still couldn't find a job, and then had themselves $700,000 in debt. And so the rate of foreclosures, the student debt, the massive rate of unemployment that isn't getting any better in the country, these are the core reasons why so many people are being compelled to take these militant actions, to put their bodies on the line, to become politically awakened and become activists. And this is something that absolutely is not going to go away because the conditions that are pushing people into the street aren't going away. So the people are going to keep responding and keep fighting.
Well, Michael, what needs to change to address this crisis and get people back into their homes?
Well, it's easy. First of all, the banks can declare a moratorium on foreclosure. The banks do not have to kick people out of their homes right now. They want to kick people out of their homes because they are going to make profit off it, taking that foreclosed home and then reselling it. They're going to make these multi-million-dollar bonuses, the bank executives and the shareholders, doing something that they don't have to do. But the thing is, they don't care. They care about their bottom line. But it's not just the banks. The U.S. government has a big role to play in this also. They can declare a moratorium on foreclosures. They can take at least just a fraction of the bank bailout money, the $11 trillion that was handed to the banks. $1 trillion of that money could have paid for everyone to be able to have a home and stay in their home. And not only that, we don't even need to pay to put people in homes. There's like 7 vacant housing units for every homeless person there is. I mean, there's an abundance of homes. The problem isn't scarcity. The problem is, what they call too many homes, or too many homes to sell at a profit. This government can take real action to improve the lives of people in this country, the millions of families who are sleeping in their cars with with their children, who don't know if they're going to have a place to live in a week, those people who are working every day, paying their taxes, contributing to the great wealth of this society, yet all of that wealth and all of the blood and sweat that they put in to building this economy is being siphoned into the pockets of not even the 1%, but a 0.1%.
And Michael, we should mention that today the Inspector General's office confirmed that they are looking into Freddie Mac. Also, U.S. senators today held a probe, a hearing on this on Capitol Hill. Do you have faith that they will, that this investigation will lead to any solutions, or what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm sure they'll look into Freddie Mac to placate people, just like the Attorney General here in California looked into the 5 biggest banks who committed fraud, found them to have committed fraud, and then basically gave them a handout. And said all of those families that were the victims of fraud, well, you don't really matter. Here's a few scraps from the table for you to be quiet. I think that the U.S. government is so tied in with the banks, not even tied in an equal basis, but I would say the banks actually sit above the government, are the ones that are really dictating domestic and foreign policy, that absolutely no politician in Washington is going to come out with anything strong against the banks. It's going to have to be the people from below organizing to do like what was done today, where banks were shut down all over Los Angeles, where people took militant action to send a message to the banks that if they're not going to do anything to help working families, if the government isn't going to do anything to help working families, then we the people are going to take it upon ourselves to build a movement that's going to build that pressure that forces them to take care of working families.
Michael, thank you so much for weighing in and coming on the show. That was Iraq War veteran Michael Preisner.